Welcome to the Crystal Clear Podcast with Coach Dave Jones. This is the place to come get crystal clear about what you want out of life and out of your business. If you know where you're going and why you're going there and who you want to go there with, you're much more likely to get there. I want you to be happy, healthy, and wealthy, and we're all going to get there and continue to stay there together. I appreciate you. Creation is the path. So many times, companies that I've worked for, companies that I've worked with, the focus of the enterprise is on competing. Every meeting is about competing. Everything is about the competition of the marketplace. And that is flawed. For this reason, all of those companies were average at best. It's because competition is rooted in a perspective of scarcity. We have to be more or less like everybody else with maybe some minor variations, maybe in the product, maybe in our pricing strategy, so that we can capture a piece of an existing market. And I think when you hear it that way and it's said that way, it becomes obvious why that is an inferior choice. When you're going to compete in a market, you are operating from the scarcity perspective that there's only so much value that you can add. And that's true when you operate from that perspective. You're only thinking about that, hey, there's 100 customers and we want to get 7 of them. When you operate from that perspective, you're fearful to do that thing that will make all the difference for your intended audience, for your intended consumer. But there is an alternative. And that alternative is that of innovation, true innovation, true creativity. When you believe that you can create something, you do not allow your mind to be bounded by what has already been done. And I'm not saying that you should always be trying to do the new unique thing. That's not what I'm saying at all. Sometimes doing that thing that hasn't been done before is just deploying something in a way that it hasn't been done or is not widely accepted. Sometimes it's just a synthesis of existing methods and approaches in a way that addresses the problem better than existing solutions. Sometimes innovation is being willing to ride the lull of product or service acceptance because you know that that is what is actually needed. Most companies are afraid to do that. One reason is from a short-termism motivation, which is almost always rooted in competition. You want to make some arbitrary mark by a certain arbitrary time for some arbitrary reason that when you zoom out, it doesn't even make sense to do that. To say, oh, I got to make the month. I got to make the quarter. I got to make the year. We can't lag that far behind somebody else. We can't be so far ahead of somebody else. All of these statements are rooted in self-interest, number one, and not in customer interest. And number two, they're rooted in this scarcity and this fear that doesn't allow you to really think about the customer and what's best for them. And the interesting thing is, I've been in lots of business meetings in my life, and I would hear leaders of those businesses and organizations say, well, what are we going to get out of it? How are we going to do this? How are we going to improve some metric for ourselves? And rarely what I hear, well, how are we going to improve the experience and the value delivered to the customer? Because the thing is, when you help the customer get the thing that it is that they actually want and that they actually need, that they actually value and appreciate, well, they'll have no problem paying whatever price. They'll have, depending on the application, they'll have no problem waiting a little bit longer to get that thing that's actually meaningful to them. Let me use an example. I don't keep up with this as much as I did in my younger years, but maybe it still happens, and if you're of a certain age, you'll remember. Back when iPhones first came out, people would line up around the block for days to get one. And then while they're in that line waiting, and they found that whoever the retailer was that was selling that, let's say in this case, iPhone, that just because they sold out, it did not mean that they weren't going to wait to get one. And it's because Apple understood the value that they were delivering, why it was important, to whom it was important. And those individuals validated those operating assumptions, and they paid the price, and they waited the time. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So it's the same thing for us as entrepreneurs, as business leaders. You have to be willing to fail and open to ridicule if you want to do anything great. Because everything great is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be innovative in its nature. Even things like investing for the long term. Let's frame this as an individual perspective. So let's say your dollar cost averaging over 40 years and you end up with millions of dollars in your portfolio. You may say, well, there's nothing unique about that. Well, there is. The fact that most people don't do it makes it unique. You are patient. You are persistent. You are consistent. And that is unique. That is valuable. Let's say you operate within an industry that you're watching what's going on. There's a lot of consolidation going on in the world. We live in a very digitally infused reality. And what that means functionally is that we value ease and convenience. So if you work in a business or you have a business that is laden with inefficiency, well, there's an opportunity just to make it easier. People are becoming smarter in certain regards and they're becoming less smart in other regards. They're becoming more technically competent in some regards and less technically competent in others. Does it make them bad? That's just the reality of the evolution of life. Technology tends to do that for us. If you zoom back far enough, everything was a struggle for humans. And now a lot of our basic needs are met by our innovations and technologies over time. Isn't that amazing? And you think about every time a guy said, I'm going to build a wagon, I'm going to build a car, we're going to bring plumbing inside. The water should just flow when you open a valve. Hell, there should be a valve. The world is not flat, it's round. The earth revolves around the sun, not the other way around. All of those people were viewed as heretics in real time. And also, most of them were forgotten in the long term. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is that they were willing to stand out. They were willing to do the right thing because it was the right thing to do. And as a result, it left an indelible impact on humanity. So, if you're running a business and you know you can make it better, the industry better, you can make all the lives better for your intended audience, well, do it. And in the course of doing that, you will fail. I will use myself as an example momentarily, and we'll wrap this thing up. I left my job in January 2020. I've incorporated 4 businesses. 5 businesses. Yeah. And 3 of them have failed. I set out initially to solve what I thought was an interesting and meaningful problem in the logistics industry. And I know that the solution was good. However, I do not have the experience, the industry experience or competence to execute such a solution in the time frame in which I want to deliver that solution. And then along the path of developing that solution, I discovered that there were already a number of existing solutions that were pretty close to what I was trying to do. So kudos. That problem is being solved and it will be adopted. I believe that very strongly. So then that pivots to my current businesses, Forward Solutions and Forward Manufacturing. I'm focused on solving a very important problem, and that is, how do we make making easy? And that's like a simple way to say it, but I work in metal manufacturing. That's all I've ever done in my adult professional life. And kind of traditionally, it was more of a craftsman sort of industry a long time ago. And then it became more standardized and industrialized. And in the course of this evolution, it's like it became a super technically heavy thing. My background is that of an engineer. So I kind of gravitated towards this industry. Maybe it selected me. Maybe it was in my plan from the universe, from God. But anyway, however it happened, it happened. I'm thankful for that. But in that industry, there's a tremendous amount of consolidation, and there's a reason for that. It's because that it's become increasingly difficult to solve problems because there's not as much interest in the industry. And also, if you look at, and I've looked at this a lot, and I've participated in this firsthand to know and understand intimately. When you want to have a whatever manufactured, it's pretty easy to get on like AliExpress and find something that's similar, and then you can reach out to that manufacturer and say, hey, I want to make these changes, and you can make those changes in layman's terms, and then they'll make the thing that you want. Well, here in the US, it's not like that most of the time. You know, a company wants a drawing, they want some technical specifications, they want this, they want that, and it's an undue amount of friction and complexity for many circumstances. What Asian countries and manufacturers have figured out is how to make that experience easy for the U.S. consumer. And I don't operate in Asia, so I can only speak from the perspective of that kind of international relationship. But because they've been able to figure out how to do that, they've built a very strong industry and economy, particularly in China. So how do we do that same thing here? Well, that's the problem I'm trying to solve. Making easier. One of the reasons I've been able to have tremendous success in my career and in my business career thus far is because I'm able to take in a large amount of information and complexity and then distill that down to simpler terms. How that manifested in my professional career was I have all these competing or seemingly competing objectives, but I was able to craft a solution that made it easy for the creators of those initiatives to get what they want. And then when you can deliver on that, well, that's extremely valuable. That's what I've been able to do the same thing in my business career. Hey, if OEM, that's an original equipment manufacturer. If you tell me you want a whatever widget, assembly, weldment, I can say, yeah, I can help you out with that. I can help you get that placed. I can have that made for you. Because I might know 50 companies in my region who can help. And there's not one of them who can do the whole thing depending on the complexity of the project. But I have the ability to get those things placed where it becomes an easy button for that OEM. And then on the other side of that, it becomes an easy button for the contract manufacturer because I am taking the technical requirements of an OEM and then recommunicating that in the technical language of that specific operation. I'm taking a lot of the legwork out for them. They can get to the business of making. That's what they're good at. I'm good at that middle part where all the inefficiency lies, and I'm trying to make that more efficient. I am making that more efficient, even if only in my little world. And in my little world, that's important. I'm making an impact, and I'm happy to do that. So, 3 of those companies have failed because I was doing the right thing in the wrong place. And now I'm doing the right thing in the right place at the right time. And I'm succeeding. And it's going to continue to build a momentum in the flywheel that I'm creating. But I had to be willing to fail at those other things to be here. There's lots of things that I do in my current business. It's not that everything that I do succeeds. Lots of things fail in this business as well. It's the fact that I'm willing to fail. I've had to pivot so many times in this business that I've stopped counting. Because it doesn't matter. And my customers know that every time I pivot that I'm really working hard to pivot toward developing a solution that will be of value and of impact to them. While I'm pivoting, I maintain a high degree of integrity because it's not really what you do most of the time. It's the fact that you do what you said you would do and you give it 100% effort and you're 100% honest and you're 100% transparent. Well, when you do that, it's really hard to be upset with a person when you know they really have your best interest at heart. So this discussion centered around avoiding the trap of competition, embracing the mindset of innovation, and then solid, classic, timeless principles for operating business. That's integrity, that's customer focus, that is doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And if you do that, you'll be fine. But anyway, have a great day. Can't wait to chat with you again. Coach Dave out.